Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah. All praise is due to Allah, and may His peace and blessings be upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We begin by greeting our brothers and sisters and our viewers out there saying, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are talking about why marriages don't work, and we said that there are two main reasons. We either marry for the wrong reason or reasons, or that we may end up marrying the wrong person. And we spoke about the wrong reasons, and we said that the first one of them is pressure. And what pressure does to us is that it takes our ability, that we are taken away from our normal circumstances to make sound decisions. Another burden is added onto us. Do it because of age, do it because of family issues, do it because of legal issues, be it because of friends and what have you. This comes in as a burden, and that takes away some of our reasonableness and rational ability to make a sound decision. And we said that nobody should make such a vital decision when they are in that situation. Do not make a decision as big as marriage while you are. A person should not be pressured into marriage. Rather, we should look forward to it, and something that we do when we really want to, not necessarily because we are being pushed into it. The second reason of why sometimes people get into marriage is because they're feeling lonely and desperate. Loneliness and desperation. When people are feeling lonely or desperate, they are much more likely to make poor love choices and end up in unfulfilling relationships. Do not lower your standards at that point. What do we mean by this? I remember one time a sister called me and she said that such and such person is proposing to me. What do you think? He said that he knows you. And I told the sister, please do not consider this person. I do not think that he's a good match for you, of what I know of him. And if he asks you as to why you are not considering him, make sure that you tell him that Yassir said so. And I remember I hung up the phone and I called the brother and I said, by the way, such and such sister just called me. And she said, do you make a good husband? And I said, no, you don't. And I advised her not to consider you as a potential husband. Of course, he was not very thrilled about what I said. This is the person that I know. Whenever they felt lonely, they go to the phone. And they start calling people left and right. Because there is just, they were in a situation that, they were single, living by themselves. He was a student, and it was summertime. He was not taking much classes. He was feeling lonely, so he would just start calling people up. And he would start talking marriage to people that he knows deep in his heart he will never ever consider marrying. But he was doing it because he was just lonely. Now some people, they just don't do this. What they do is that because they are lonely, they actually get married to add some excitement into their lives. They get married, very similar to the people who were pressured into it. Now these people, because they are lonely, they go into the marriage. And what happens at that point is that people end up lowering their standards. Now I say there, you are not a store. What does that mean? You're not a store. What happens in the store when they want to get rid of their products? What do? Big sale. What do? They lower their prices. They lower their, it's 50% off. Sometimes they lie to us. They say it's 50% off, but they haven't really done anything. But we go in and say, that was great price right there. And it was just the same price from yesterday. In any case, so what happens to the store is when they want to get rid of their products that they don't want, they lower their prices. Similarly, sometimes because we're just so lonely, we are so desperate, what happens is we lower our standards. And when we lower our standards, we end up compromising our principles. Many times I get phone calls, in the masjid where people say, I am either getting old or I am feeling lonely, I really need to get married, I need help, I just need somebody. And sometimes it gets very sad because some people say, I am really getting old, my chances of having a baby are becoming very slim, I want to get married to make sure that at least I have a baby before it's too late for me. And the minute that you're thinking this way, what happens? You end up lowering your standards. The minute you lower your standards, you end up compromising. You compromise your principles, you are creating a recipe of disaster for you and for your future family. So similar to pressure, do not get into marriage simply because out of loneliness or out of desperation. That will not work. Avoid making a decision because you are feeling this way. And by the way, one of the beauties of marriage is that life can be very lonely. When you are by yourself, it's very lonely. You want to be with somebody, especially if you are a man or a woman. You want to be with somebody who's from the opposite sex. It's exciting to be with a woman if you're a man. It is exciting to be with a man if you are a woman. It is very fulfilling. It gives you that opportunity, that ability to fully exercise and experience what it means to be a man or what it means to be a male when you are in the company of a woman or when you are in the company of a female. And this type of loneliness, by the way, can never be filled up by friends. It cannot. Friends do not replace our wives or husbands. Friends are nice. You go there to them and what have you. But remember what we said about that genuine person who is unconditionally devoted to your emotional well-being and what have you. When we do not have this in us, that leaves us very unfulfilled. And that can leave us very lonely. And when we become lonely and desperate, we become vulnerable. We do not want to put ourselves in that situation. Okay? And that is a very important point there. Another reason, or another wrong reason, why people get married is the idea of sexual hunger. Remember, pressure takes different forms. It can either be due to age, due to family, due to friends, due to challenges of the law, and sometimes the pressure is not outside of us, the pressure is within us. The pressure is within us. It is the community that decided what age is appropriate for me to get married. These are my friends who are pushing me into it. It's my family circumstances. You know, it is my legal challenges. But now, the pressure here is coming from within. And this is part of it is what we refer to as sexual hunger, or what they call sexual hunger limit, SHL. What is your sexual hunger limit? What happens is that when people start thinking, be you a man or be you a woman, you're constantly thinking about, you know, having your sexual needs being satisfied. And we live at a time where sex is all over the place. No matter what it is, sex nowadays sells. You want to have an advertisement or a commercial for Coke or Pepsi or soda, somehow there is a sexual scene in there. They make movies, they make sure that it include sexual scenes in it. They're about to sell any product. And for some reason, I think Dr. Zakir Naik said this the other day, usually when it is a motorcycle commercial, it's usually a woman. Even though it's not most women that ride motorcycles, but somehow what it does is that these sexual scenes are very captivating. They registered well in your mind. Billboards are very famous for this. You make any sexual insinuation, any sexual suggestion, it sticks in people's mind. When the DSL came out, you all know the DSL. That is when you are able to be on the phone and access the internet as well at the same time from your phone line. When that first came out, there was a big billboard advertisement for it. And it was done in such a way that there was this young woman, she was on the computer, but at the same time she was also on the phone. And what does the caption read? It said, now with DSL, I can talk to my fiancé and at the same time chat with my boyfriend. So wait a minute. It said, I can now talk to my fiancé and chat with my boyfriend at the same time. I mean, what message is being sent out there? Fiancé is the person supposedly that you made a commitment to and a boyfriend, but it was suggestive. And it was sexually suggestive. So we have all these sexual scenes that we see almost on a daily basis that we are bombarded with all the time. We can reject these notions, but nowadays it's almost impossible to escape them. They are all over the place. The magazines that we buy, the newspapers that we buy, the news that you watch, the television that you turn on. Sometimes even when that is not the case, and you may choose not to have a newspaper, not to have a TV, nothing, just by merely walking out onto the street, you see the billboards all over the place around you. Sometimes it's on the buses that you ride on. Sometimes it's on the taxis that drive by you. Sometimes it is just the people on the street who are around you. So we cannot escape these things. And what happens is that the more we are bombarded with this, naturally speaking, we become, this is something that's in us, and somebody is constantly suggesting it to us. So what happens is that we start thinking about it, to the point that sometimes we are obsessed thinking about this. And at that point we say, I don't want to do anything that is haram, I just want to get married. Now, as much as I appreciate the sentiment of people not wanting to do anything that is haram, but you must look beyond, I am not getting married simply not to do the haram. You must also want to get married. Sexual fulfillment is part of why we want to get married. But remember this, the suggestion that is made sometimes is, if we have got serious and beautiful sexual relationship, it means that everything is going to be okay. And that is not the case. Sex is only part of marriage. What happens is that when people when they make decisions, when they are in the stage of, they have reached their sexual hunger limit, we tend to compromise major issues. Major issues are compromised. We can only speak and think of the other person in physical terms. Are they going to be sexually fulfilling to me, or are they not going to be sexually fulfilling to me? Now, how long does that take? It may take an hour. But then within the day, there are 23 hours left. What are you going to do? You can't have sex 24 hours a day. You cannot do that. So what happens to the rest of the time when the person is not having sex? Is this the person that you would want to be with when that is going on? So that's what we want to say. We want to say that never make a decision simply because this is how you are feeling. Rather acknowledge this and then deal with it. And we will be talking about this topic when we come back from break. So please do stay tuned, and we will be back shortly.
And always be seen as man and wife fulfilling.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May the peace and blessings and the mercy of Allah be upon all of you. And thank you for joining us again. We are talking about how people in a bad relationship. And we said that the reason maybe is that the initial reasons why we got into the relationship were not good reasons. We spoke about 3 of them. We said pressure might be one. We're pressured either due to our age, family, or circumstances. It could be because we are feeling very lonely and desperate. And a way of getting out of that loneliness and desperation is by finding somebody to share our lives with. But sometimes we are so lonely and desperate, and we are just so eager and desperate for a relationship that we end up compromising our principles, and that is not acceptable. Or what we're talking about here is sexual hunger. And we said that about this issue of sex is that we are bombarded with these sentiments, sexual sentiments, all the time. I mean, many times you open your email and something in your junk mail comes in, and it is from an adult website. And we live at a time where sex is such all over the place. We reject these notions, but we are unable to escape the fact that they are there. And because they are there and they are around us all the time, we are invited to be part of this sexual culture that we are in, and as such sometimes we may end up compromising major issues, part of our principles, that things that we wanted in our partner, because we are feeling so sexually hungry at this point. And we said that even though sex is part of why we want to get married, but it cannot be the only reason why we get married. It is not the fact that we want to have sex. It is when we go into marriage only to have sex, then that is not good. That is not good. Person may be sexually appealing now, but people age, people get older, and by the way, that is why if you remember in the ayah, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? What does Allah place between spouses? وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ what? Mawadda is what we said? Love. And then what? Rahma is what? Why? Why mercy? Why didn't he say love and passion? Why didn't he say love and compatibility? Why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala choose mercy? Why mercy? You know, as we get older, you know what? We lose our charm. As we get older, We may not be as physically appealing as we were younger. But then what happens is that what? There's got to be rahmah to keep us together. There's got to be rahmah to keep us together. They say that when we are young and we get married, what happens? We want each other. And as we get older, what happens? We need each other. You see how that transforms? When we are young and we get married, we want each other. But then as we're getting older, we need each other. And because now we need each other, what has to be there? There's got to be rahmah. There's got to be that mercy, that compassion, that kindness out there in our relationship. In any case, yes, one of the reasons that we will be talking about is that you must be physically and sexually attracted to that person. And that is why the Prophet ﷺ said, make sure that you see her. فَإِنَّهُ أَحْرَى أَنْ يُؤْدَمَ بَيْنَكُمَا. He said that this is more befitting that, you know what, this relationship lasts between you two. And they said that Jabir ibn Abdullah wanted to see that woman, so he climbed over a tree and he waited for her to pass by to see what she looked like. So, yes, it is right that we want to be attracted to the person, but that cannot be the only reason why we do so. And sometimes we do the exact opposite. What happens is that sometimes we say, I have heard about this man, I have heard about Iman, his Iman is excellent, he is such a good brother, or she is just a tough, good religious sister. That's all that matters to me, let's get married. But brother, you should see. You should see what she looks like, and sister, you should see what they look like. And what do they say? No, deen is what matters. That's what Islam commanded of, and I want the deen, and that. You know what happens with these people? I mean, like I said, as nice and as noble as their erroneous sentiment is, but reality is they are only setting themselves up for disappointment. Deen is good. You know, in the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that people marry for 4 things. They marry for wealth, they marry for looks, they marry for status, and they marry for deen. You know, it said that make sure that you choose the deen. But some people think that because you choose the deen, you have to compromise and sacrifice everything else. No. That's not what it says. It said make sure that that becomes your first criterion. And it would be so beautiful to have that criterion and all other criterions to be there as well. So it seems like we are either on this extreme where we only look into the physical aspects of the person, or we become such denial that we do not want to consider anything that is physical, and we say deen is what is most important and deen is all I want, and both compromises are not acceptable. You ought to be sexually attracted to the person, physically attracted to them, but that cannot be the only reason why you are marrying them. You know, in biology we are told, you know how sometimes you see a person and you are immediately struck with their beauty? What happens when you see that person tomorrow? And the day after? And the day after? And the day after? And the day after? What happens? It starts fading away. You know why? Because initially when we saw them, we never had a file for them in our brain. So it took some time for us to be struck with their beauty. But then the next day, what happens is that a file has already been created. So our brain does not go through the process of creating a new file, it just recalls the file that is already there now. So that is how the excitement goes away. It is such a big problem, brothers and sisters. If somebody falls in love with the outer beauty of the person and not the inner beauty of the person, that is a recipe for disaster. If a person falls in love with only the outer beauty of the person and not the inner beauty of the person, then that is not good. You must fall in love with the inner beauty of the person, because that remains. Tomorrow our faces change. Tomorrow we get wrinkled. We may go bald. We may, our hair is turning gray. But what remains is the inner beauty of the individual. So as we're looking, that's what we want to see. Be attracted to the appearance of the individual, but you must also be in love, most important, with the inner beauty of that individual. And with this, inshallah, we will open the floor for questions or comments, inshallah.
Brother, you said about having a file picture in the mind. How about the file picture of your spouse with respect to ebbing of excitement, like because you have a file picture of your spouse in your mind, and you said that the next time you see, you're not, so astounded or you are not struck by their appearance.
Right.
So does that affect?
Yeah. What happens is when you choose a spouse, yes, you were initially attracted to them because of their physical appearance. But you did not stop there. The attraction did not stop there. You fell in love with their inner beauty. And because the inner beauty is not a physical thing that you see, the love with it is continuous. And usually it grows by the passage of time. Now and then you discover something nice about your spouse within their inner beauty. So what they look like on the outside becomes secondary to you as a husband or as a wife, because what is most important to you is their inner beauty. And the inner beauty, you are in love with it. So it's not that you do not disregard it, you do not marginalize it or consider it to be not important, but you are in love with something that is more important than just the physical appearance. That is how, within the spouses, this thing is not supposed to be a big, huge issue. And that is why people are married for 50 years. And of course, 50 years, we become fatter, we wrinklier, but to the spouses, you know what? The inner beauty has not changed. Through time, what happens to it is, it gets even more beautiful. And the sister up there has a question?
You said that we need to look in for the inner beauty of the person whom we consider for marrying. It's there initially, fine, the inner beauty, but what are the chances that the inner beauty will remain the same after 10 years or 5 years from now?
Yes. Remember, maybe it's our inner beauty that might change, not only their inner beauty. And that is why we said initially, remember when we spoke about the myth about love, that love is not forever, that love does not conquer all, that the first love is not the best love. It may be the chance that, people have changed. And was it us that changed them, or are they just coming out as who they really are? So if that's the case, then people sometimes give us very little reason to love them. Sometimes they may even leave us with very little reasons to stay in love with them. And that is why we say love is not forever. Brother has a question?
You never know what's happening in a person, and things can change all of a sudden. Perhaps you get into a contract, a person may act showy, he can be very dainty, but when he actually happens to be in the contract, he may change of a sudden. So could you give me the exact parameters where we could actually check up the inner beauty?
Yes, that's a good question. And I promise you, when we're done with this workshop, insha'Allah, we will learn enough about this topic. But sometimes, you speak about inner. How am I supposed to know the inner beauty of the person? That is such a complicated process. It is not, people. It really is not. If you know what you're looking for, and you keep looking for it, it is not. And we will learn this, insha'Allah. That's all the time that we have for this episode. And we're glad that you have joined us. And inshallah, you will join us next time we are here as well. And until we meet you, we say so long and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.